So, Predator. It is in hot, hot water. There is a legal battle going on that you may or may not have heard. I've been covering it here on the channel reasonably extensively. The only thing that I haven't covered recently was that there was a delay to when they were going to court, basically. I didn't think it was a big enough thing to cover for a video. It wasn't delayed drastically. It was just a very small delay. But I have been covering the lawsuit extensively when there's been pretty decent, tidbits of information to drop in here and there and keep you up to date on. If you don't know what it is, basically, Jim and John Thomas have filed for the copyright to the film back, basically, that they made. They were the original writers behind Predator. They want the rights back. They are entitled to it under the 35-year law, if I remember rightly. They're entitled to it. They're the very least entitled to follow through with these procedures. Now, as a bit of background before we move forward with where we're at now on the lawsuit, again, for those that don't know and for those that do, just skip ahead. But basically, they filed this ages ago, years ago, in fact. And what happened was 20th Century Fox just sat on it. They just sat on it. They didn't bother replying, basically. The weirdest thing ever. They just didn't bother replying. Then at the last minute, Disney swoops in, because Disney bought 20th Century Fox and, by default, now own Predator and the copyright to that. They swooped in at the last minute and filed a countersuit, right? And that is what then started the actual lawsuit. Because all that happened was Jim and John Thomas filed for the rights back, which they are entitled to, they are allowed to, although some mainstream media sites, I believe it was the Hollywood Reporter or Deadline, or maybe even Variety, name, take your pick, it doesn't matter. They twisted it as Jim and John Thomas taking advantage of the system. No, they're legally entitled to do this. They are fully within their rights and there are legal precedents for it. Case in point, Clive Barker recently won the rights to Hellraiser back. He owns it again. It's his, right? So there is a legal precedent for this. But Disney swooped in, filed a countersuit, basically claiming that Jim and John Thomas didn't file it correctly. And they're like, okay, we're just going to sue you then. Whatever. We will sue you, Disney. And this is a pretty monumental case to follow because it's Disney. If you didn't know, Disney are the ones which changed public domain copyright laws. They are the reason. And why, might you ask? Well, for Mickey Mouse and, all of their original Disney properties. They wanted to keep it. Because it's originally, it was originally lapsing a lot sooner than that, and Disney argued and changed the legal precedent for copyright. They changed copyright law. So this is a pretty big case. Now, it's gone. They have had a preliminary hearing. Not a major one. But what's been argued is, again, I firmly believe, is representative of how Disney don't actually think they have much of a leg to stand on. They're procrastinating. And that's how I view this. So, I got this information from my friends over at avpgalaxy.net. You'll find this article linked down below, and please do head on over to that website. They're a fantastic aggregator of Alien, Predator, and Aliens vs. Predator news. They're great. They're really, really good. So here we go. Jim and John Thomas versus 20th Century Studios took an interesting turn today. They had a motion hearing, right? And this was expected to be a dispute over a preliminary injunction which would halt Disney-era content from continuing, which is what most people don't want to happen, which is what's happened to the Friday the 13th series. So you know why we're not getting any more of them at the moment is because they have basically had a preliminary injunction. It's been wrapped up so much so now that they can't make anything new. That's why nothing is happening. So a lot of people didn't want this to happen, but that's not what happened. So it became a dispute over where the case belonged, all because of Disney. And this to me screams of Disney realizing that they don't have a leg to stand on. And it's just taking everything into account from them filing a last-minute lawsuit against Jim and John Thomas, and because they just, the claims that they're making is outlandish. That, oh, you know, they filed it under the wrong section because it's technically, you know, not text, or all this kind of nonsense. It's like, no, they're doing the right thing here. It's Mark Toberoff, the guy who has been representing most of these copyright cases. In fact, all of the copyright cases against, you know, well, representing clients versus studios, and he's been very successful with it. So what they're doing is this. Magistrate Judge Laurel Beeler opened the hearing opposite Daniel M. Petrocelli, legal counsel for Disney / 20th Century Studios, and Mark Toberoff, the legal counsel representing the Thomas brothers, wanting to hear why the case belonged in her district. Now, there was similar or duplicate lawsuits by both parties. Were also filed in the Central District Court. This currently is in the North District Court. Now, this is the area where the contract agreement between the Thomas brothers and 20th Century Fox originally took place for the rights to Hunters, which is the spec script back in the 80s. Now, this is where Disney come in. So legal representation for 20th Century Studios argued that the Central District, not there in the Northern District, again, so this is them procrastinating, was actually the proper venue for this matter. Even though they've done it in both districts themselves anyway, like from what I can attain from this. And they also believe the case should be dismissed. So they're like, well, there's duplicate filings, just throw the case out. If that doesn't scream of desperation, I really don't know what does. They're literally just going, Judge Laurel Beeler, just dismiss the case. Why? Because they've done duplicate filings. Pfft, silly. What? No. Just because there's duplicate filings, that does not mean that they should just dismiss the entire case. What are you high? What are you doing? Desperation. I've been saying this, it's desperation and procrastination from Disney. Now, legal representation for the Thomas brothers asked the judge to rethink this position. Mark Toberoff argued that entertainment cases were a dime a dozen in Central District, and because of that, the courts are more congested. This argument seemed to imply that if the case was moved there, it would take a longer amount of time to be resolved. And also, Toberoff argued, among other things, that this copyright case was not a location-specific case. Plus, it would get the attention it deserved if it was heard in the Northern District. Additional support for both parties' arguments were previously filed but not discussed in this hearing. So obviously, the question is, what happens now? The judge didn't make a decision. They're like, we're just gonna, yeah, we're gonna make a decision at a later date. So there we go. There is no halt on the production of Skulls at the moment. We know that because they are actually out there in Calgary, beginning production. They are, you know, starting to shoot this film. Basically, Dan Trachtenberg's out there. Just cast Amber Midthunder. They are going to start shooting the film, and that is what Disney wants to stop. They want to stop Jim and John Thomas coming in and doing, an emergency injunction, stopping everything from happening. And that makes sense from Disney's side of things. And it makes sense as fans, I guess, you know, why people wouldn't want that to happen. Like, I get it. I absolutely do get it. You know, people that want Friday the 13th to come back and things like that. 100%. Like, I understand. But out of all of the companies that you would probably want an injunction against who could bastardize a property, it would be Disney. Again, make no mistake, they are bastardizing Predator. My previous report on this today alone is cheapening the product. They are going to be releasing this film on Hulu. Bad times. If that doesn't tell you that they are not the right company to have the rights to this, I don't know what does, personally. I am all for an emergency injunction against Disney to stop and halt all production on new Predator material. But anyway, there you go, there's the update. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. To me, it screams of desperation from Disney, but I could be wrong. It's an interesting one to follow. Could they change copyright law for good? Could they change it? Because if they do, you could see some people going back to court. You could see some decisions being changed. you know, emergency filings left, right, and centre. We'll see how it goes, but let me know what you think down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. If you stayed this long, you clearly enjoyed the video, so do hit subscribe and do hit that like button. Thank you all so much. Take care.